Encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in. It's time for us to get fired up to date, get some motivation and inspiration, something that we can grab a little bit of a nugget to help us get through a time that we not too sure of. Hey, did anybody get to watch the CNN story? Not that I'm a big CNN fan, but they had the Christopher Reeve story, Superman, 2 hours worth this past Sunday. It was well worth watching. So if you get a chance, check up the CNN. And it's the Christopher Reeve story. It's actually the younger son, the one that him and Dana had. He's grown up, and him and sister and telling the story, and of course showing all the stuff. But well worth watching, especially if you spinal cord injury like me. You want to do that. So get some information. Hey, today we're going to talk about a little bit about forgiveness. Probably some other stuff involved into it too, but forgiveness can be one of the main topics here. And let's go ahead and get Rhonda on here. Rhonda Britten.
Here I am. Here I am.
Now coming in singing. That's what I like. So
yeah, I felt like the introduction. I just had to sing my way.
There you go. There you go. Yep. I tell people, only one that can stand my singing was my dog, and that's because he can't understand everything, right? So I'm not even a good singer in the shower. So, all right, appreciate you being here, and yeah, but we definitely need to learn about forgiveness, and not to forgive me right here, Rhonda, but she's a coach, and we'll get into her coaching stuff as we go along through, and 150,000 copies of this been sold. Her book, okay, Fearless Living, and she'll get into that with us as well. All right, Rhonda, appreciate you being here, and I'm going to step right here and give it to you and do your part.
Okay. Well, I think what you're referring to, the forgiveness piece, is I'm going to tell you about the worst day of my life. And I believe that the worst day of our lives have the seed of our destiny. We don't know it at the time, of course. We can only see it in hindsight, right?
Yep.
So, but this story, just like I'm sure your worst day of your life, the seed of your destiny, this day had my seed of my destiny, but of course I didn't see it. And I was 14 years old. I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 360 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants, fancy Douglas House Buffet Hotel, and Big Boy. That's all we had. And
hey, Big Boy. We've had Big Boys here before.
I love Big Boy.
Big Shoney's.
That's where we hung out. Which I'm sure the waitresses really liked young 13, 14-year-old kids there. But
that's right.
We got tater tots, right? And I And so so we're going, my father and mother are separated, and it's Father's Day. So he's coming to take us out for Sunday brunch, which is a big deal because I grew up in 3 kids, 2 adults, 5 people. That's a lot of money. So it was a big deal that he was coming to take us out for brunch. My mother made me a brand new cotton white dress, and she made a scarf with black polka dots on it. And I felt like I was Barbra Streisand, or if you're younger, Taylor Swift or Beyonce. And I was in my mom's room, and she's fluffing up her beehive hairdo and doing a blue eyeshadow and her lipstick. And my dad, who's now living with his mother because they're separated, walks in the back door and says, come on, girls, let's go. And my 2 sisters are fighting it out in our one bathroom. And me and my mom start walking out towards the door. My sisters are still in the bathroom fighting it out. And as me and my mom start walking out, my dad notices it's starting to rain. So he says he's got to get his coat from the car. Now, this coat is a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat, which was really hip and cool at the time.
There we go.
So he takes that key, he opens that trunk, and I notice out of the corner of my eye that he is not grabbing a coat. He is grabbing a gun, and he starts yelling at my mother, you made me do this, you made me do this, and he fires. And I start screaming, Dad, what are you doing? What are you doing, Dad? Stop. And he takes the gun, cocks it again, points it at me, and I absolutely believe I'm next. He blinks, I blink. He blinks, I blink. And my mother, literally with her last breath, screams out, "No, don't." And my father, realizing my mother is still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. That second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen, out her back, lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is,
Wow.
and then my father cocks the gun again, puts it to his head, and fires. So within a matter of 2 minutes, I was a sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how you would respond or anybody else would respond. This is how I responded. It was my fault because I did nothing heroic. I wasn't Superman, right? I didn't grab the gun. I didn't kick the shins. I didn't jump in front of my mother. I didn't sacrifice myself. I just screamed, "No, don't, Dad, don't."
Now, how old are you? How old are you?
I was 14.
14.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you watch your mother die and you did nothing about it, you don't get to be happy. So that was off the table. Happiness out the table. And so from that moment on, I basically divided into two people, the outside Rhonda and the inside Rhonda. The outside Rhonda was, I'm fine.
Play the game in front of everybody else.
That's right. I am fine.
Yeah, play the game.
And that's right. And then inside, right, I low self-esteem, beating myself up, filled with shame. I started drinking and found alcohol, which, numbed the pain. Started drinking, became an alcoholic, got 3 DUIs. I tried to kill myself 3 times. And that third suicide attempt, I realized I'm not very good at killing myself. I'm not good at that.
That's right.
And I got to figure this out.
Not to compare apple and oranges and everything, and not trying to one up or anything. But one reason I started my podcast is I attempted suicide 3 times in 3 days.
Wow.
That's how bad I wanted out. And you know as well as I do, once you live through your suicide attempts, they make you see a psychiatrist. And I say that funny now, everybody.
They put me in a psychiatric. They put me in a psychiatric ward to get evaluated.
Well, I was in the hospital for 6-7 weeks, and they were making me see a psychologist then. Then I had to see him for a year, and he's the one that said, "James, you got a story. God didn't take you for a reason. You got people you can motivate and inspire with your story." And he's the one that got me into public speaking, writing my books, and eventually led to the podcast so you and others can get y'all's message out. Now, James, shut up. Rhonda, continue on.
No, I love that. I love that because, I did go to psychiatric ward, after the third suicide attempt. And, they let me, I wasn't crazy. I didn't deem me crazy. So after about 4 days, they let me go. And I went to my little apartment all by myself, which you and I both know that's not a good idea. And so they send me home, and I remember so vividly leaning against my wall in my little tiny apartment. And you know how you're like leaning down and fall down on your butt, and I'm on the floor, and I'm looking at my life going, I got to start over. Now, those years that I was suiciding and drinking and DUIing and going to jail, those years I was still like trying to go to therapy, and I was going to workshops, and I was reading books. I mean, I read my first self-help book when I was 12. And when I was 13, I wanted to be a minister. So I was really trying to help myself, really trying to do things. But, fundamentally, I just thought something was wrong with me. Fundamentally, there was something wrong with me. And so I remember that day saying to myself, I have to start over. And I said, well, what do kindergartners do? Well, they get a gold stars and a calendar. So I actually went to the store, got a calendar, gold stars. And I started giving myself a gold star for anything I did, anything at all that I did at all positive in any way, shape, or form. I don't care how little it was. So we're talking about getting angry and I didn't break anything. I gave myself a gold star, right? I drank and didn't get drunk, gold star. So we're talking about that level of awareness. And at the end of a month, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And that calendar gave me hope. And I, like you, was like, okay, well, I'm not dying. Because I remember saying this to myself, I'm not dying. So I got to figure out how to live.
Exactly. We're not dying from this suicide stuff. So now we need to start living.
Right.
Hey, one good thing I like about your calendar and your gold stars and everything, it's something visual that can remind you I did do something positive. Okay.
That's right.
I mean, because we can mentally put that in there, but then mentally we can't see it. There's no affirmation, and then we're not going to remember the whole month in our head. But
That's
seeing
right.
that calendar and seeing all them stars, you know you did something every day that was positive.
That's right.
Multiple stars for multiple things you did.
That's right. That's right. And that's the thing that I'm so glad you pointed that out, because one of the things that I know to be true is we as human beings do not give ourselves credit. We do not validate ourselves. We forget. So let's say you did something really great today. 3 days from now, you're going to completely forget that. Or maybe the thing you did that was good, let's say that you spoke up at work, or, spoke up in a relationship. And then 3 days later, you're not speaking up. And so you're like, I'm just right. Like I never spoke up before. So we don't give ourselves credit. So we don't remember that we did it. So that gold star helps you remember, you know what, I did do that. Because when you're shifting the way you want to be in the world, when you're shifting your mindset, when you're shifting, how you want to see yourself, you're going to do great sometimes and not so great the other times. And the parts where you're not doing great, you have to remind yourself that you did do it before, because you will forget. It'll feel like you never did it. So
We're our
I'm
own
so,
worst. We're our own worst critics. Okay.
well, right,
We want to
right.
blame everybody else. Well, I couldn't do this because so and so told me I was not gonna. I couldn't do this because so and so said that I'm wasting my time. No, you're your own worst critic. One, for listening to garbage like that. Okay, surround yourself with people that's going to build you up, and you're going to build them up. Okay, you with someone else that's being negative, you just. I'm not saying you don't have to be stop being friends, but you don't have to be around them as much.
Well, you can also talk to them. That's
Yeah,
the whole thing about
exactly.
fearless living. One of the things in fearless living that I teach people is how to identify a fear junkie and a fear buster, and then what to do about it. So if your friend is, negative Nanny and just complaining, you can say things like, I've heard you talk about this a few times, and I'm wondering what solution you want to come up with. Is there any solution here? Or do you want to come up with a solution? Or do you just want to vent to me? Right. So putting the onus on them, just giving them a little moment of awareness by you asking a different question instead of joining in and complaining with them, just going, I've just noticed you talk about this a lot, and I'm wondering if you're trying to find a solution. Because my experience is that complainers usually don't want to find a solution. They just want to complain. So we want to take control of our complaining, turn it into what I call venting. And venting in the world of fearless living is, I'm gonna call James up and be, hey James, I need 5 minutes, and I'm just really need to talk this out. I'm so mad, right? And for 5 minutes, I'm gonna tell James everything. I'm gonna swear, I'm gonna get mad, I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna be right. But at the end of 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it is, when James is gonna ask me, okay, are you complete? Yes, I'm complete. And then you know what? We're gonna change the subject, or we're gonna look for a solution.
Yeah.
So we do have to let our feelings out, but we need to do it with somebody who's not going to engage with it and take us further down. We have to engage either on a piece of paper, or, in the mirror, or with a friend that you can say, hey, I just need 5 minutes to vent, and then I want to figure out how to do it differently. Well, then you're growing, then you're becoming more aware, then you're taking responsibility, then you're owning your life. And if you don't own your life, it ain't going to change.
Yep.
It's not going to change. So, you have to decide, just like me, just like James. I'm sitting in my apartment on my butt, third suicide attempt, not dying. I had to decide. People say, well, what was the main thing that changed your life? A decision. A decision. I had to decide, okay, I'm not dying, so I got to figure out how to live. And I made a decision to do that. And that included stopping drinking. I got sober. And that was a huge moment in my life, because I like drinking, and who wants to quit drinking? And did my friends change? Yeah, a lot of them did, because they were my drinking friends. They weren't a friend, they were drinking friends.
Yeah.
And so there's a big difference. So starting to take back your life and really own your power is a courageous act. It's a fearless act. And some people are going to like it and some people aren't. And again, you can start talking to them differently. When you read Fearless Living, when you take my workshop, Fearless Living Transformation Program, which, by the way, I'm teaching live, which I rarely do, teaching live February 22nd and February 23rd. You can spend 2 days with me and learn all about the Wheel of Fear and the Wheel of Freedom, which is the mechanism that keeps you stuck, the mechanism that keeps you blaming, the mechanism that keeps you judging and shaming yourself and keeps you believing the worst of yourself. So I want me, I know it changed my life, to understand how fear works so it does no longer takes you, no longer owns you.
Yeah, fear can be used as a good motivational tool, unless you use it to capsule you where you don't do anything. Okay, but yeah, fear can be, I'm scared to start a new job because I don't know what to expect,
Yeah.
but once you reach out and do that, and you see it's better than what you were, so it can be a good tool if you use it
Well,
the right way.
it's about awareness.
Yeah.
Everything, you can't change your life without awareness. And you must be willing to become more aware, be more aware of your thoughts, be more aware of what you believe, be more aware of how you're feeling, be more aware of how you make decisions. And that was a rude awakening for me because, here I thought, I knew there was something, I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me, but I, I thought I was aware, because that's what we think. We think we're aware. That's why cognitive dissonance works so well because we're not aware. And so I have a saying, slow is the new fast. You got to kind of slow down and pay attention to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing, how you're making decisions so that you can see, like, wait a minute, am I acting from fear or am I being fearless? Because many people have those mixed up. So let me give you a little quiz if you're following along now.
Yeah,
My
go
book
ahead.
Fearless Living. If you're listening or watching, and if you're able to, go ahead and shut your eyes. If you're not, it's not safe. Don't shut your eyes. And nod your head if you do any of these things or feel any of these things. Do you do any of these things or feel any of these things? So nod your head if you do. If you can shut your eyes, great. Do you ever deny yourself? Do you ever isolate? Do you ever pretend everything's okay when it's not? Do you ever hide out? Do you ever compare yourself? Do you ever settle? What about whining? Do you ever judge? Do you ever get defensive? Do you ever manipulate? How about complain? What about wait and call it patience? Do you ever procrastinate? What about worry, struggle? What about blame, shame, control, deflect? Do you ever feel bitter, entitled, powerless? Do you ever feel guilty? What about perfectionism or people pleasing? Do you ever feel indifferent? What about overwhelmed? What about ignored? What about irritated like now? What about being victimized? What about getting caught in self pity? So go ahead and open your eyes. And I asked people what percentage of the ones they nodded to. And I would say most people, if I'm talking to a room with an audience of 1,000 or 10, I would say most people have over 90%. They've nodded their head. What about you, James?
It was a high percentage. Yeah, I mean, not I don't know the number off the top of my head, but yeah, it was a high percentage of what you
Yeah.
listed.
Yeah. So these are the things how fear shows up in our life. So we think these are character flaws. Oh, I'm judging. I really got to stop that. And you blame yourself for it, like, oh, right. Instead, it's like, oh, I'm judging. That must mean fear is on patrol. That means there's something I'm thinking of doing, something I'm actively doing, some shift I want to make. That judging is becoming the way that I stay stuck. It's just a fear response. And once you can see it's a tool to keep you stuck from fear, then you can make a decision. Well, do I want to let fear cause me to judge, or do I want to take back my power and, observe and make a different choice? Right? Because you can have discernment, you can have opinions, but judging is something different. Judging is blaming, shaming, etc. Somebody's bad or good, right? So, when you do these behaviors, when you have these thoughts, when you're experiencing these symptoms that I talked about, like I said, usually we call those character flaws, but really they're just symptoms of fear. And once you can see it that way, it takes away the blame and shame. It takes away the guilt. It takes away there's something wrong with me.
One thing that I mentioned there, you mentioned in your list that I really hit myself too much on is the comparison.
Mm.
I wanted to compare another spinal cord injury to my spinal cord injury when everything's totally different there. Okay. Or how well is my podcast doing compared to someone else's? And, so yeah, I don't like doing that, but I do the comparison.
Yeah, most people do, right? Because we're trying to find our place in the world.
Yep.
We're trying to find our place. And one way we attempt to find our place is by looking out in the world and comparing. So, and we all know this, we've all heard it. This is not new information. There's always somebody who's going to do better than you and always somebody who's going to do worse. We know that logically, yet we still get caught in it because we're trying to see how we're doing. And we want to have an internal compass rather than an external compass. Now, if your external compass, if you compare from a place of, like I said, from discernment or from learning, like, oh, he or she's getting a whole bunch of the, more hits than me. What are they doing? And you're really going from a place of curiosity and learning. Well, that's different. But if you're using it to beat yourself up, put yourself down, shame yourself, blame yourself, call yourself names, then you're doing that out of fear, which then stops you from actually doing the very thing that you want to do, which is grow your podcast. Right?
That's right.
So, we can, all the behaviors everything we do is either driven by desire to grow, our growth mindset, the freedom mindset, the fearless mindset, or to keep us stuck, the fear mindset. So you have a choice. And you're making that choice, by the way, every moment of every day. Whether you get up and work out, whether you stay in bed and, eat potato chips, whether you make that phone call or don't make that phone call. And don't get me wrong, some of those things are hard for me to do too. And we always have fear. Fear is part of our neurobiology. And that's why I created something called what I call the wheel of fear and the wheel of freedom. So you have fear, you're not crazy. We just want to take the shame away from it and the onus away from it and stop making it a character flaw instead of like, oh, this is how everybody operates. Oh, okay. Everybody judges when they're scared and they're not sure where they fit in, and oh, by the way, I can have discernment and look at other people and go, I want to learn from them. So both of those things can be true. So we want to just be able to identify when we are keeping ourselves stuck by listening to fear instead of our intuition, instead of God, instead of source, instead of the universe.
I'm just jokingly going to come in here for a second with you talking about, you can call me up whenever and I want to complain, James. You just give me 5 minutes, and I was at the store the other day and someone said something about, they don't ask people how they're doing anymore because all they do is want to complain about something. And I said, yes. The sad thing is they don't want to hear you complaining, but they sure want you to sit and listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you know how you handle that. You don't have to ask people how they're doing. Instead, you say, it's so good to see you.
Well, that's what he I forgot what he said, but he turned around now and yeah, he doesn't ask how they're doing because he knows what they're going to say and do. And so, yeah,
Well,
he comes back, like I said, with a different response.
mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it was nice senior or whatever it was, but it was something just direct. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I had to learn that when I, was at book signings and, people wanted to bond with me and asking them how they're doing. Well, if you're going to ask somebody how they're doing, you actually have to then listen to their response.
That's right.
And so I learned to say, oh, it's so good to see you. And that then doesn't open the door for them to share everything, right?
Yeah, we got 100 people waiting in line. You can't take 15 minutes with everybody.
That's right. Even though I would love to, it's just not feasible. So you're the one that, because then people, so that's a perfect example. I'm just going to use that, James, because let's say somebody asks, how are you? And the person complains. And then you go home, right? God, that person complained so much.
I couldn't believe they went like they did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you're the one that did that. You're the one that invited them to do that, right? You're the one that opened the door. And so that's where we go. Most of us don't know how we're contributing to our own problems in that way. Instead, we're like, they should know better. Why aren't they smarter? Why aren't they more attentive? Why don't they pay attention to me? Why, and so we say, oh, that person always complains. But it's like, well, you asked them. You asked them.
That's right.
So if you don't want to hear it, you got to say something different. You're in charge of so many of your interactions that you feel powerless about. You're actually contributing to them instead you can take your power back and actually shift that so you don't have to be part of that, that downward spiral.
Now, looking at your book here, it says live without excuses and love without regret. So
that's right.
And this one you said it's now you've written several other books I saw a while ago, but you said this is the one that's really people was dove in after.
Yep.
Like over
Yes,
150,000, over
that's right.
150,000. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so this has all my Wheel of Fear and Wheel of Freedom things. It also has, you started the podcast with forgiveness. It also has how I forgave my father, because people are like, well, how did you forgive him? Because I say I forgave my father, and I actually talk about how close we are now. And, I know he's on the other side, but I feel very close to my father. And, we've healed our relationship. And yes, you can heal your relationship with somebody on the other side. And when I decided I had to change my life, one of the things I had to do, which of course is to get sober. So I got sober. And during my sobriety, I started realizing, even though I thought I did it already, and on some level I did, people ask me all the time, well, I already forgave them. Why do I have to forgive them again? It's like, well, because you're still bitter about it, because you're still resentful. When you truly forgive, when you get on the other side of forgiveness, like really, you don't have that anymore. And most people have to forgive more than once. And I believe that as you grow as a human being, so like, let's say I forgave my father the day he did it. I told people that, I forgive him. Remember, I was going to be a minister when I was 13. So I knew the right
Yeah.
thing to do, forgive him. Right. But I didn't have much of me available, right? Because I was doing that, got to play the game, as you said, right? I've faked my way through life. But as I got to know myself better and share more of myself, I had more access to parts of myself where I was like, oh, I need to forgive him again in a different way, right? So I've forgiven my father many times over the years, and it usually corresponds with me going through a big change. And so when I got sober, after that, it became the 20th anniversary of their death. And I said to myself, I'm going to go and do a ritual to let them go. And I went to a little lake here in California, and I sat on the edge and I wrote letters to my parents. I also wrote a thank you letter for all the things that I gained from being their daughter, things that they either through my DNA or things that I learned or experiences. And I also vented to them. I also said, and this isn't okay with me. And I wrote those things and put those in the pot and burned those as well. And then at the end, I wrote a letter to them and said, I forgive you. And my father was actually the easiest to forgive, because it was so clear, like he did this bad thing. Forgiving him was actually the easiest of all. Who was harder to forgive was my mother, because I had to take her off the pedestal of like, she's the victim, and go, wait a minute, where's my mother in all this? Yeah. And really look at her as a woman instead of as a victim. And then lastly, forgive myself. And I remember so vividly, James, when I turned away, I was at the lake doing these burnings and writing these letters and, crying. And I remember burying all the little pieces of paper and turning away from that spot going back to my car. And as I turned away, I remember thinking to myself, this is the first time that I'm walking as me, without my parents, without the guilt, without the shame, without all that stuff. So forgiveness is such a healing tool, and something that many people aren't willing to do because they think they have to be friends with them. No, you don't. You don't have to be friends. Forgiving is not saying what they did is okay. Forgiving is setting yourself free.
Yes.
It's setting yourself free. So I have a little exercise I did in order to forgive my father. Would you be interested, James?
In just a minute, but I want to say how powerful. I've never thought about forgiving more than once. I never thought about that, but I can see exactly what you're talking about. Not that I'm a woman or anything, but I can see where you go, I forgive you, Dad, for not being there to walk me down the aisle when I got married.
That's right.
I could forgive you, Dad, for not being there for my firstborn and the others later. I forgive you. I never thought of it that way before. That's powerful.
Yeah, when I got married, I was pissed all over again. Right?
Yeah, because
they should be there, right?
Your job is to walk me down the aisle.
That's
and
right.
You forsaking me for what you did. Yeah, and then so forgive him for that. Yeah, I never thought of that. I just thought forgive them for what they've done. Now I'm thinking about non-family member stuff. I'm sure I got a lot of things that we need to forgive my family for back and forth. All of us do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just focused on, I forgive you for that. But yeah, as a family, like your dad, yeah, I could see multiple.
Yeah.
But I never thought of it that way until you said it.
I love that you got it, and I love that you brought up those examples, because that's exactly right. Anytime I've gone through something big in my life, I'm like, where are my parents? Right? Like,
Yeah.
where, right? Why aren't they here? They should be here. They
You
should
should
be
be at
holding
my
me.
high school
Yes.
graduation. You should be
Right.
at my college graduation.
That's right.
You should
That's
be
right.
watching me. You should be
That's right.
watching me on Oprah and Steve Harvey.
That's right. That's right. And, I had nobody help me financially growing up, so when I was 14,
See, yeah, didn't have that
we,
back.
right.
Yeah, okay.
I
See,
had
I'd
nobody that I could
never
lean
thought
on.
of this
Yeah.
until you. I'm glad you brought that to my attention.
Yeah. So I had nobody to lean on. So 14 on, my sisters and I I got $200 a month for Social Security, and that helped pay the rent. And then if I wanted anything, I had to work. So my entire life, I did not have somebody that I could go, hey, could you loan me 10,000 for my house?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could you babysit? No, nothing. So when I look at my nieces and nephews today and go, wow, because my sisters are, one of my sisters is a grandmother, and she takes care of her grandchildren all the time. And I think, wow, like my niece has no idea how fortunate she is. Like, we had none of that, right? And by the way, our relatives never came either, because I think the shame of my father murdering her and then committing suicide, the shame in that little town was so great. Our relatives didn't help us either. So nobody came with food. Nobody came and helped us. Nobody came and offered to give us, money or to feed us or clothe us. Nobody. So when my parents died, we were completely abandoned by our family and our
Yeah.
community as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a lot of forgiveness to do. So I'm so glad you understood. So even today, and I'm older now, but I will still go through something, right? I'll go through the big thing in my life. I just graduated, by the way, with my master's degree. So I just actually picked it up from the mail just right before
There
our
you
interview.
go.
And I'm like, I haven't opened it yet. It's like, I want to show my parents, right? It's like, I got a master's degree. So all these times are opportunities to forgive if you still have any bitterness or heartache. So yeah, it's not just one time, it's throughout your life. And what it does is it builds your ability to keep an open heart. Because that's the thing, we want to keep an open heart. We don't want to close our heart. And when we close our heart, we're also closing our heart off to ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's not just closing your heart to the person you're mad at, it's closing your heart to yourself. You don't have access to that heart. So we want to be able to keep that heart open, and forgiveness is one way to do that.
I agree with you. So I agree. Again, the thing is, to be able to move forward, we've got to accept what's happened, and again, forgive the best we can, and then move forward in life.
So. Yeah, and it's okay to get mad, and it's okay to get angry, and it's okay to move through those feelings on more than once, and but you get to make decisions on what to do next. And that's one of the reasons why I created what I call the Wheel of Fear and Will of Freedom in my book, Fearless Living. I describe it, and I have that workshop coming up, Fearless Living Transformation Program, where
February 22nd, 23rd.
That's right. You can go to fearlessliving.org. I think it says get coached, and you can see Fearless Living Transformation Program. You can go there, and it's February 22nd, 23rd. I have a great price on it right now because I want as many people as possible to go. And you spend 2 days with me, and you're going to actually find what I call the Wheel of Fear. And the Wheel of Fear is when you get your Wheel of Fear, the number one thing that people say to me when they get their Wheel of Fear is they say, I understand why I did everything I did. I understand why I got married, got divorced, why I went to school, why I didn't get to go to school. It makes your world make sense. So you can quit blaming yourself and shaming yourself for your past and be able to clear the deck, so to speak. And so you can start over and you can move forward.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to share.
You're throwing a lot out here with me. I'm just trying to soak it in as we're going along. But Yep. What you're saying just been powerful to me.
Oh, good, good. Well, let me share briefly. I'll just quickly share the forgiveness exercise that I created to
Okay.
forgive my father. So I remember, I was like, okay, what am I going to do to forgive him? I need to move past this. I have to quit carrying this burden. I have to quit carrying him around all the time, right? Because that's what you're doing when you're not forgiving. You're literally carrying them around with you. And so I got a piece of paper and I broke it up into 2 columns. The first column, you write the person's name. So I wrote my dad. You can also write organizations. You can write, church. You can write groups of people. So a person's name, a group of people, an organization, et cetera. Put it on the top on the left. On the right-hand side, I want you to write, I'm willing to forgive you. So on the left, the person's name or their organization. On the right, I'm willing to forgive you. So one of the things that this exercise is going to do is create new neural pathways, because the only way that we can actually shift our behaviors is shifting our neural pathways. And the challenge we have is we have this emotional connection to our past, but we also want to create a new future. So the exercise I created, unbeknownst to me at the time, was I was actually doing something to live in the paradox, to live in the and both, so that I could create a new neural pathway. So on the left-hand side, I write my dad's name and I write one sentence, one phrase. Back in the day, I probably wrote, I hate you, Dad, for killing Mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go over to the right-hand column. I'm willing to forgive you. Go back to the left-hand column. No, I'm not. I'm not going to forgive you. Then you go to the right-hand column. I'm willing to forgive you. Left-hand column, you left us with nothing. Right-hand column, I'm willing to forgive you. Now, let's say you're writing, I'm willing to forgive you over and over again, and you're like, I'm not going to forgive him, right? So then write, I'm willing one day to forgive you. One day I'm willing to forgive you. So write that. But you want to do this exercise until you're literally emotionally exhausted. So it's not going to be probably a page. It's probably going to be a few pages. And I want you to think of everything that you want to say to this person or to society at large, et cetera. And just one sentence at a time, one phrase at a time, then I'm willing to forgive you. Sentence, phrase, right? So that way you're allowing your feelings you're telling your truth, you're allowing your feelings to come out, but you're also saying to yourself, you're also training yourself to go, yeah, all that's true, but I do want to forgive them. I can be mad and forgive them. Because usually what happens is if we think we're mad, then they don't have a right to be forgiven. We want to live in, I'm mad and I want to forgive them. So when we're doing that back and forth, 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 we're literally creating a new neural pathway, because we're living what I call the paradox of life. And the paradox, when we can live in that, I understand, I don't agree, or I'm really mad, but I want to forgive. If we can live in that paradox, both those things are true, then we can rise above all of our false beliefs that we're hanging on to, all of the past stories we've told ourselves that we're hanging on to, all the victimization we've had that we're hanging on to, all the blaming we're hanging on to, all the stories we tell ourselves about, so and so and so and so. We can let that go, because we understand that we're living in the paradox. We can be mad and forgive. We can be mad and want to move forward. We can feel stuck and be okay. So living in that paradox is really critical for us to move forward.
Yeah, just because you forgive doesn't mean you're gonna be happy. I like that you give yourself permission to still be angry about what happened, but you're forgiving so you can move on. Again,
That's right.
What's those saying? People are living rent free in your mind. When you're thinking too much of the bad stuff like that.
Well, think of it this way. My mother and father died when I was 14. I didn't forgive them until really, again, I forgave them a little tiny bit, but I did the big giant forgiveness at the 20th anniversary of their death. So for 20 years, they only were alive 14 years of my life. For 20 years, I carried them around with me. I blamed them. I used them as excuses for my alcoholism, right? And everybody would agree with that, right? If I was a drunk right now on the side of the road, people would be like, well, you know what happened to her, right? Right? They would be like, well, of course she's like that, right? They wouldn't lend a hand necessarily. They would just go, well, of course, right? So that's the thing. I just want, everybody to hear that I didn't let them go fully and completely until it was 20 years. and they only were alive 14. So I gave them more of my life than they were alive. So think about who you're carrying around with you, because you can sit there and say, "Oh, I don't have to forgive them," or I don't have to let that go. I mean, I'm fine, but I promise you, somewhere you're closing your heart. You're closing your heart, and when you close your heart, you are closing your heart to love. You're closing your heart to your own self-esteem. You're closing your heart to your self-confidence. You're closing your heart to changing your mind. You're closing your heart to you expanding. You're closing your heart to being a light. You're closing a heart to, right? You're closing your heart. And we want to keep our heart open in order to become the people we were born to be.
Let me ask a question here. Go back to your 14, all that took place, and you said you got into alcohol. I don't remember you say drugs. I don't remember that.
Nope, no drugs.
No
I started
drugs, just
drinking when I was
alcohol.
7. I started drinking the senior party of my senior year, because when I went through high school, of course, I had to keep being perfect because I didn't want to
Playing the
be that
game.
girl, right? I didn't want to be the girl that, parents died and she goes psycho, right?
Hey,
But so it was a senior year party, the very last party of the year, where I discovered lime vodka and 7-Up.
there you go. So, but that, I wanted to ask, do you think witnessing what you saw, I know that played a big part of what happened, okay, with the drinking and everything, okay, or could part of it have been what they call survival guilt? That
Oh,
you knew
it's
that
all
bullet
of
was
it.
supposed to
Yeah,
be for you,
yeah,
but he put it on mom to kill, so it left
absolutely.
you alive
That's right. And who wants to be alive, right? I
after
mean,
that.
yeah, who wants to be alive,
Yeah.
So yeah, so did I have survivor's guilt? Absolutely. Did I feel ashamed that I didn't save them? Absolutely. I never, ever, ever told anybody how my parents died. Never. Because I believed they would say, well, she's from that family. Because remember, after it happened, everybody like from town just disappeared, right? So I was now one from that family.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be from that family. So I went away to college. Nobody knew me. I was so excited. I have a clean slate. And people would be like, "Oh, your parents." And I would just say they died. And then, "Oh, both of them?" Yes. And then they would say 99.9% of the time, they'd say, "An accident?" And in my mind, I'd go, "Yes." I'd say yes to them. And I can't lie. So in my mind, I'd go, "Well, yes, my father accidentally purchased a gun, accidentally put bullets in, and
Yeah.
accidentally shot
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
mother,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I never told them the truth. I mean, I didn't want to
Well,
be that
no,
crazy
you
girl.
you could put, well, it's not that the crazy girl is, she's gone crazy because of what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
and
like I said, you're drunk, and then the people were judging.
that's
Well,
right.
she's a drunk because of what happened.
That's right. And so I never told anybody. So when I first started being a coach and started speaking, I still didn't tell my story. And a really good friend of mine who was a speaking coach said to me, "You really should tell your story." And I literally believed, well, that's a stupid story. Nobody wants to hear that. That's
Oh no,
depressing. Who wants to?
you're not the one and only murder
Yeah.
suicide.
Yeah. Like what's the big deal? Right? What's
I'm
the big
sure it's
deal?
not I'm sure it's not a rapid everyday thing, but there's more people out there that are
Well,
going what you went through. They may
well,
not have sit there and witnessed it. They may have found out on the telephone and whatnot, but yeah, there's a lot of
no,
people going out there, and I'm glad you're sharing the story because
yeah.
it's going to help those other people.
Yeah, it was a big deal for me to start sharing it. I had to go through my own level of shame and embarrassment and heal that in order to really speak about it powerfully and really talk about my journey. But yeah, I mean, to claim your past, and claiming your past lets you release it. It's your shame of it, or your I don't want to think about it, or I want to hide it, or that causes that embarrassment and humiliation, so that you're always trying to cover it up. So you're kind of going through life just kind of, like you said, playing the game. It's like you're just trying to make do, right? Because you got all this stuff going on and you don't want anyone to know. And instead you can just drop that whole thing and let your true self emerge, which is better than any fake you.
Yeah, exactly. And most people, of course, when you tell your story younger, it was an accident or whatnot. I mean, they didn't understand, but most people see the authentic in you. They know the fake. Now that your story's coming out,
Mm-hmm.
they know the fake,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being authentic on yourself.
Yeah. Well, being authentic in my world is the truly fearless act,
Oh
because
yes.
being authentic is, the most vulnerable, the most honest, the most exposing, but that is my charge, that's my goal, and I'm not always perfect at it, right? Because I got fear too, and I might dance a little bit sometimes and sing a little
Mm-hmm.
bit sometimes, right? But my goal always is okay, wait a minute, Rhonda, you're blaming. Wait a minute, Rhonda, you're judging. Wait a minute, Rhonda, you're comparing. That fear's on patrol. Do you want to let fear run your life right now? Do you want to let fear decide your future? Do you want fear to decide this moment? And my answer is no. No, it's not. No, I don't. So
Fear
then I've
doesn't
got to
have its
move over.
best interest.
Yeah, and so I would jump over to my what I call the wheel of freedom. And so I jump over to my wheel of freedom, and my wheel of freedom at the core of it, and yours may not be the same, but it's authenticity. So Rhonda, I asked myself, Rhonda, if you were being true to yourself right now, what would you do? What would you say? What would happen right now? And I got to slow down a little bit and go, okay, what would I do if I was being authentic? What is true for me in this moment?
Well, I'm glad you're being authentic with us now. So appreciate. I mean, for what you had to witness and where you're at today, it just so again, all this has been powerful today with me. So I know it's going to help people in the future. Yeah, where they say 100 years from now, people are going to find this stuff. It's all in the internet. It's there forever now. So just
That's
think,
right.
Rhonda, 100 years now, somebody's going to
Aw,
stumble across this, and you're going to help them.
that makes me so, so, so joyous. So,
One one thing again, the comparison that's what to me is one thing is I want to know, am I really helping someone? When I really, it's none of my damn business. We're there's more people you and I are helping. We'll never hear from.
that's
We'll
right.
never know from. But it's good. I like the accolation. I guess being an athlete, when you win your awards, you want the accolation. So it's
We all
good to hear
Yeah, James,
that
we all need
one win every
validation.
now and
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, we all need validation. I need
Yeah.
validation. When I'm having a bad day, I call my best friend and I'll be like, I'm a horrible coach. I don't know what I'm doing.
Uh,
Maybe I'm stupid. Right? Like I have moments like that. And I go, but this is the difference between the old Rhonda and the new Rhonda. I know what's happening. And so I call my best friend and say, would you remind me that I'm worthwhile and that I'm good and that right? And she'll be like, oh God, remember the time you did blah blah blah. And remember that woman that came up to you? And I'm like, yeah. Well,
she's
remember the time when you got and I also keep every single letter I've ever received and every email I've ever received. And they're in boxes in the garage. And some days, sometimes, you know what? I'll go read those suckers and remember all those thousands and thousands of people that I impacted. And of course, everybody doesn't write you a letter, right? Everybody doesn't give you a thumbs up on your video. But I need validation just like you do. We're humans. We want to know,
yeah.
we want to get signals, right? So, but this is the difference between the old Rhonda, the fearful Rhonda, and the freedom Rhonda is I ask for it. I ask for it. So I'll be working with somebody. I taught a class last night. And I always end my sessions or my classes with tell me one thing that you got from our time together that lets me know what you received. So your time was valuable, but also it's your gift back to me to tell me that I contributed to your life right now. So I ask for it on a regular basis because, it's really important that we have that exchange of energy.
All right, podcast people, I'm going to ask every 3 minutes now to do something good for me. No, I'm kidding. But I would just all of a sudden when you were talking about you call your girlfriend and you say, "Oh, I'm the worst coach ever," and all of a sudden she's giving you back your gold stars.
That's right. That's
She's
right.
giving you
That's
back your
right.
ghost. Now you
That's
can use
right,
that.
James.
Use that in
That's right.
your speech
I do.
now.
I'm gonna use that. That's
That's what I'm
good.
saying.
Yeah.
She gives me back my ghost stars and tells me that stuff I wasn't thinking about. So I
Well,
wish I would have been like you. I'm not uh, I'm a collector of. You can tell behind me, I'm a collector of sports stuff. But I've had a few letters and stuff given to me. People talking about how I've changed your life from my speaking, and I'm one of them who say, "Oh, that's great." Then I throw it away. I wish I'd have kept those now
do
as
not.
later.
Yeah.
And I'm
Hmm.
sorry, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings out there, people. I'm just not
Yeah.
wanting them to keep. I don't keep Christmas cards. Thank you for sending them, but they go after that. So for me, but
Yeah. And so from now on, keep them.
well, I did keep one email that you mentioned, an email, and I was out speaking somewhere, and there's one woman come up and talk to me afterwards, and she said, I don't know why I even come today. I had other plans, but some God just kept telling me come to this today, and she come and talked to me about this, and I said, well, I appreciate it, ma'am. I said, here, take one of my books. I gave her a book, and email was sent to me after that weekend from the one that headed up the speaking thing. She forwarded to me, and the woman had wrote her the reason that she was there and everything, and she explained that she had given that she was terminal, death was coming in 6 months, and she felt the reason to come for this was to listen, and said me specifically.
Yeah.
And, oh man, I did keep that email just
There
because
you
of
go.
the death.
Yeah.
Talking, wow, that's amazing to hear that.
Yeah. Well,
You did help someone else
yeah, there
before.
you go. There you go.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I,
from an ego perspective, sure, we don't wanna need it, but it sure feels good. So, and I'm a firm believer in acknowledgments and validation and affirming. And when I want to give your listeners a gift, and go to fearlessliving.org, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. And I'm going to gift you my Cure for Procrastination course. It's called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And also in the third video of that, there's 3 15-minute videos, really short, really easy. Watch them in the next 24 hours. And the third video, I actually show you the wheel of fear so you can see how it works, so you can get an experience of it. But what you're saying right now is, whenever we have a goal or a dream or something we want to make happen, whether it's I want to become a better communicator, or I want to stop people pleasing and learn how to put boundaries, or I want to open a business, or I want to make $1 million. I don't care what it is. The reason we don't go forward is because we're afraid of those, what I call stretch, risk, or dies. And so this tool is one of my clients' very favorites, and you're going to be able to use it so that whatever you want to make happen, no matter how big or small it is, you can actually make progress and start seeing, one, what's stopping you, but two, how to keep moving forward. So go to fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK. You're going to put your name and email in, and you're going to get access to the Fearless You platform. You'll go in and you'll get the course. And again, 3 15-minute videos. I got worksheets in there, workbook, everything you need. So you'll have no, confusion, so that you can actually start using this tool today, like right now.
and when you're over on the website itself, and we'll put all this in the show notes, sign up for February 22nd and 23rd. Rhonda, be sure to say happy birthday to my brother, my mother on the 23rd. She'll be turning 85. So on that day. So yeah. So but we're going to wrap it up here, Rhonda. I appreciate you coming in. I know you have one person fired up today with me. I see some other listeners that come in, so hopefully they're all giving thumbs up and hearts. So they've gotten something out of it here. So I appreciate that. If you want to go ahead and again, mention your course, date again,
Sure.
all your website, your social media.
Everything. Just, you can always put Rhonda Britten, Rhonda, and then Britten, Britten, Britten. Put Rhonda Britten, put Fearless Living in Google, and you'll find everything. You'll find all social medias. Just put Rhonda Britten in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything is Rhonda Britten. And then go to fearlessliving.org. And go to Get Coached, and there's going to be Fearless Living Transformation Program. Click on that, and it'll have all the information about the February 22nd and 23rd live 2-day event on Zoom. So again, this is the second time I've done it on Zoom. So take advantage of it. It's $297, and that is normally $997. So grab it while you can and join me, because you're going to understand how fear works. You're going to understand about fear junkies and fear busters. We're going to go through all the tools, so many tools that I have for you, so that you can start truly living the life that your soul intended. And so that's fearlessliving.org. Go to checkout under Get Coached, Fearless Living Transformation Program, and then go grab my free gift, fearlessliving.org/risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org/RISK. Go there, grab the free course, and you'll be on your way.
On your way to the better you. And remember,
be fearless.
That's right. And be fearless. And the better you is you're going to pay it forward. That way somebody else going to pay it forward. And again, 100 years from now, somebody's be paying for something you taught them 100 years earlier. So
That's right. That's
all right,
right.
Robin. Robin, I did that earlier to you before we got on. I called you Robin, Rhonda, and so thank you for being here. I'll put all the information in the show notes and everything. Now, there's people hurting and struggling today. If we could leave them with a positive message, that'd be a blessing.
So open up your ears and open up your heart. And if you'd like, just shut your eyes and just take this in. Take a nice deep breath and take this in. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. It is just fear. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not flawed. You're not damaged. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. So decide today that you are going to learn how to map your fear. Grab Fearless Living book, or come to Fearless Living Transformation Program, or go grab the course. There's also an online course. Work with a coach. Do something so that you can actually understand how fear works. So fear doesn't own you. Fear doesn't own you. You own you. So it's time to live the life your soul intended.
Amen, sister. Hey, I appreciate that and everything. And hey, for everybody else that's listening, be sure to share this. This is powerful today. Not to say that all the other stuff's not been as powerful, but this is powerful today. Be sure to share with someone else that you know who that person is that needs a little uplift here. And so share with them. All right, everybody. I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.